Chapter 3. Well, here goes. Jenny stood at the foot of the gravel driveway, looking up at the gently sloping lawn to the Wexner's house. It was a 2-story gray-shingled house, not very large, sort of a box without any style. A red and white boy's BMX bike stood against the front stoop. The hedges that ran along the house from the stoop to the far side were neatly trimmed, and the grass looked as if it had been mowed with great care. Her sneakers crunching up the gravel drive, Jenny felt a little bit nervous. At least it's not a run-down old mansion like the Hagen's house, she told herself. The Hagen's house, she recalled with a shudder, looked like the setting for a horror movie. The Wexner's house, on the other hand, looked well cared for and inviting, Jenny thought. From the drive, Jenny could see around to the backyard, which was also neatly mowed and dotted with tall evergreens. The sun was setting behind the trees, the sky a beautiful rosy gray. Jenny climbed the 3 steps onto the stoop. She raised her hands to knock on the screen door, and a man appeared in the doorway. "Oh, hi," he said, holding open the door. "I saw you coming up the drive. Did you walk here?" "Yes," Jenny said, stepping into the house. "It's only 2 blocks from my house." "Oh, right, I think you told us that." He motioned for her to go into the living room, which was small but nicely furnished, with a white leather couch and matching armchair, around a glass and chrome coffee table. 3 watercolor paintings of different colored orchids were hung stair-step fashion on the wall behind the white couch. "I like the paintings," Jenny said. "Oh, really?" Mr. Wexner seemed pleased. "Rena painted those, my wife. She's really quite talented. I keep after her to paint more, but she hasn't had the time." He was a short, slightly built man, about 34 or 35, Jenny guessed. His narrow, pleasant face was topped with thinning, light brown hair that he wore combed straight back, and as neatly trimmed as his own front lawn. He was wearing a navy blue button-down sports shirt and neatly pressed chinos. "Rena and I won't be out very late," he told Jenny, motioning for her to have a seat in the armchair. "We're just visiting friends." "Where's Eli?" Jenny asked, looking out the front window at a rabbit hopping near the stoop. "Good question," Mr. Wexner said, smiling. "My guess is he's up in his room, building something or other. Eli, as you will quickly find out, is quite mechanical." He chuckled. "You will quickly find it out," he added, "because Eli will tell you what a mechanical genius he is. I'm afraid he's not too modest." "Most 10-year-olds aren't," Jenny said, laughing. "I wish Eli acted more like other 10-year-olds, Mr. Wexner said, his smile fading, his face filling with concern. "Oh well, back in a minute." He turned and hurried up the stairway, across from the front door. What did he mean by that, Jenny wondered. She walked to the window and looked for the rabbit, but it had disappeared. A bookcase under the window contained 3 shelves of mysteries. She read the titles for a while, feeling nervous, wishing Mr. and Mrs. Wexner would leave so she could play with Eli or just relax. "Hi, Jenny. Sorry to rush out without a chance to talk. I've written down the number where we can be reached on this pad." Mrs. Wexner, standing at the foot of the stairs, spoke rapidly in a soft whisper of a voice that barely carried across the living room. She was a small, thin woman, shorter than Jenny, with blonde hair cut boyishly short, dramatic dark eyes, and 3 diamond studs in her left ear. She was wearing a pale blue long-sleeved t-shirt over white tennis shorts and sandals. "Hi, Mrs. Wexner," Jenny said, stepping away from the bookcase. "Please, call me Rena. Eli is upstairs in his room. Why don't you go up and say hi? He's expecting you." "Okay," Jenny started, but Mrs. Wexner just kept right on talking. "Don't let him walk all over you, if you know what I mean. Sometimes you've got to be firm with Eli, but not too firm, if you know what I mean. He's very emotional. Well, you'll see. He's so smart, you see. Sometimes we forget he's only 10, and—" "Come on, Rena," Mr. Wexner called from the kitchen. "You'll scare Jenny away before she even starts." "Okay, sorry," Mrs. Wexner said, her whispery voice making her sound like a little girl. "Sometimes I talk too much, but there are worse crimes, right?" Jenny laughed. She didn't know how else to react. Mrs. Wexner seemed a bit surprised by her laughter. She picked up her bag, quickly fingered through it, then closed it, and hurried out toward the kitchen. "See you later, Jenny. Help yourself to anything," she called. Jenny heard the kitchen door slam. A few seconds later, she heard a car start up. Jenny watched from the window as the Wexner's car, a blue Volvo station wagon, backed down the drive. "Guess it's time to go meet Eli," she said aloud. As she climbed the stairs, she thought about Mrs. Wexner's words of warning. She seemed so nervous, Jenny thought. Why did she feel she had to warn me to be careful with Eli? Is he some kind of monster or something? Jenny's imagination immediately took over. She pictured a monster waiting for her at the top of the stairs, a short, hunched creature with bulging red eyes and an open, drooling mouth, giggling hideously to himself, waiting to pounce on her the second she came into view. "Stop it, Jenny," she scolded herself. "He's probably just a little high-strung," she decided, reaching the top of the stairs. A narrow hall led to 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. A door at the end of the hall proved to be Eli's room. Jenny stopped in the open doorway and peered into the room. Eli was seated at a long white counter that ran the length of the back wall. The counter was filled with all kinds of electronic equipment and tools. An M.C. Escher poster was the only artwork on the walls, a confusing abstract of tangled, interwoven shapes that seemed to double back on themselves endlessly. Eli had his back to the door. He was typing rapidly on a computer keyboard, his face and body outlined in the amber glow of the monitor. "Hi," Jenny called from the doorway. He continued to type. "Hello," Jenny called, nearly shouting. He typed a little longer, then spun around on his desk chair. "Hi," he said without smiling. Jenny saw that he had a narrow, intense face like his father's, topped with thick blonde hair, which obviously hadn't been brushed that day. He had his mother's dark eyes, which were even more startling on him, since his skin was so fair and the rest of his features were so pale. He was wearing a Turtle Power t-shirt over green spandex bicycle shorts. "I'm Jenny," Jenny said, venturing a few steps into the room. "I know," Eli said, scratching one ear. "You're Jenny Jeffers. You live 2 blocks away on Sycamore. You go to Harrison High. You're going to babysit me 2 days and 2 nights a week." "Hey, you're right," Jenny said. "I'm impressed." He shrugged. "I don't need a babysitter," he told her, his face remaining expressionless. Not unfriendly, not friendly. "Maybe I do," Jenny joked. "I built this computer," he said, ignoring her joke. "You did? You built it? I really am impressed," Jenny exclaimed, moving closer to take a better look. "From a kit," Eli said, "but I modified it. I put in a graphics card and extra memory." "Wow," Jenny said, leaning over him to stare at the monitor screen. "You know anything about computers?" Eli asked, sounding doubtful before Jenny even answered. "A little. Enough to do my homework on." He smiled for the first time. He doesn't look so grown up and serious when he smiles, Jenny thought. Such a sweet smile. "I really don't need a babysitter," he said, turning serious again. "You could go home right now, and I'd be perfectly fine." Jenny couldn't help it. She felt a little hurt by him repeating this. "Would you like me to leave?" she asked. He turned back to his computer. "I'm a mechanical genius, you see. At least, that's what the testing people said. I took all these tests at this place downtown, and they said I was a mechanical genius. Know what my IQ is?" "No, what?" Jenny asked, a little appalled by the boy's boasting. "It's over 180. That's really high, and it'll probably go higher when I get older and know how to take tests better." "Wow," Jenny repeated, not sure whether she should be encouraging him or lecturing him on why he should be more modest. "What's your IQ?" he asked. "I don't know," Jenny replied. "No, really," he said, reaching out and pulling her arm. His hand was so small it startled Jenny. How did such little hands build this big computer? "Tell me your IQ," he said, tugging her arm. "I really don't know," Jenny insisted. "I don't think I've ever taken an IQ test." "Why? Because you're too dumb?" He burst out laughing, a goofy, high-pitched laugh. "That's not nice," Jenny said, unable to suppress a giggle. "I'm not dumb." "Then why wouldn't they let you take an IQ test?" he asked, still holding onto her arm. Is he being friendly? Jenny wondered. Why is he holding on to me so tightly? "I don't know. Let's change the subject," Jenny said impatiently. "Tell me about your computer. What can you do with it?" "You wouldn't understand," he said, sighing. "Why wouldn't I?" "Because you're not a mechanical genius like me." "That's not a nice thing to say, Eli." "Oh, brother," Jenny thought. "Here I am with this kid for 5 minutes, and I'm already making with the lectures." "I'll show you something else I built," he said, his large dark eyes glowing in the amber monitor light. He held a finger up to his mouth. "Shh. Is it a secret?" Jenny asked, whispering. "It's a secret from my parents," Eli said, pulling a cardboard carton out from its hiding spot beneath the counter. "Maybe you shouldn't show it to me if it's a secret from them," Jenny suggested. "It's okay. You're only the babysitter," he said. I think he meant that to be cruel, Jenny realized. I think maybe he's testing me, seeing how far he can go, how mean he can be. He's too smart not to know that he was insulting me. Or is he? He's only 10 after all. Eli is definitely going to be a challenge, Jenny thought. "See?" Eli asked, pulling a metal and wire contraption out of the carton. Wow, Jenny said, trying hard to figure out what it was. He handed it to her. It's a phone. Rena and Michael don't want me to have one. Rena and Michael? Jenny asked, a little surprised. You know, my parents, he said impatiently. He took the homemade phone back and deposited it carefully in a carton. They don't want me to have a phone. They're afraid I'll get spoiled. So you built your own? He nodded. It really works. I tried it. There's a phone jack right under the counter there. See it? He bent down to point it out to her. Who do you call with your secret phone? Jenny asked. He shrugged. No one really. I mean, I don't have too many friends. His face remained expressionless as he said this. Jenny felt uncomfortable with Eli's sudden openness. He was such a strange combination. One minute, he was insulting her, telling her she was only the babysitter and he really didn't need her. The next moment, he was holding onto her arm and confiding in her what had to be a painful secret. Do you try to make friends? She asked. Friends are stupid, he said. What? They're stupid. The kids at school. They're dweebs. Stupid dweebs. Jenny didn't know how to respond to this. She didn't want to get into a heavy-duty discussion with the kid about the value of friendship, but she knew it wasn't right that he thought all the other kids were too stupid to be his friends. I'll show you my real friends, he said, pulling her by the arm. Your real friends? Eli, where are you taking me? Don't pull so hard. He was surprisingly strong for such a skinny little kid. I just want to show you this, he said. Close your eyes a minute. Jenny obediently closed her eyes. When she opened them, Eli was holding a shoebox in front of her face. What's in the shoebox? Go ahead, he urged. Reach your hand in. What? It's okay, Jenny. I promise. Slide back the lid and put your hand in. No, I won't, Jenny insisted warily. No way. Come on, I promise, he said. He looked upset, hurt that Jenny wasn't trusting him. I promise. Please, stick your hand in. Well, okay, if you promise it's okay, Jenny said reluctantly. He probably has a turtle in there, she thought, or maybe a hamster or a guinea pig. I don't want him to think I'm a dweeb too. She slid back the lid a few inches and plunged her hand into the box. And then she opened her mouth wide and began to scream. Chapter 4. It was a tarantula, Jenny said, her voice trembling, just thinking about it. Do you believe it? The kid put a tarantula in the box. He has 3 of them. They're his pets. She stopped to scratch her arm. She suddenly felt itchy all over. Dr. Schindler leaned forward at his desk, rolling a silver letter opener in his hand. So, what did you do? He asked, his first words since Jenny had begun describing her first evening of babysitting for the Wexners. I screamed and dropped the box, Jenny said, picturing the big, hairy tarantula as she spoke. The thing fell out of the box and started to run right toward me. Dr. Schindler's face remained expressionless. He continued to twirl the letter opener. I dodged out of its way, Jenny continued. I hate spiders. I've always hated spiders. But Eli, he thought it was hilarious. He was in hysterics. He laughed until tears rolled down his cheeks. I wanted to kill him. Not really, Dr. Schindler said quietly. He looked over at the tape recorder, checking to make sure the tape hadn't run out. Not really, Jenny agreed. But it was such a mean trick. I mean, making me reach into that box, and then he thought it was so hilarious that he had frightened me, that his trick had worked. The look on Eli's face, it was evil. That's the only way to describe it. Evil. He just laughed and laughed. Then what happened? Dr. Schindler asked, glancing at his clock. Eli put on a glove and picked up the tarantula, and carried it back to the glass case he keeps them in. He never even apologized. I told him that was a horrible trick to play on someone, and all he said was, tarantula bites can't kill a person. He's 10, right? The psychiatrist said, writing a quick note on his desk pad. Yeah, but this wasn't like a 10-year-old's prank, Jenny insisted, suddenly feeling defensive. He enjoyed it too much. What do you mean, Jenny? I mean, he thought it was so funny that I got so frightened. I just had the feeling that he wanted to hurt me. Are you sure you're not reading too much into this? Dr. Schindler asked. I don't think so, Jenny said. I really don't. Well, what happens next? After he put the tarantula back in its cage. I forced myself to calm down, but I was still very upset, and I told Eli how angry I was. I told him he should never play a mean trick like that again. Did he take you seriously? I really don't know, Jenny replied thoughtfully. After I scolded him, he got real sullen. He turned away from me and went back to his computer. He wouldn't talk to me the rest of the night. Not at all? Not at all, Jenny said, shaking her head. I went downstairs and watched TV. I didn't see him the rest of the night. He even put himself to bed. I couldn't believe it. How do you know he put himself to bed? I went upstairs to check on him about 10:30, and he was sound asleep, all tucked in his bed. It was so weird. I mean, I was angry at him. I don't think he had a right to be angry at me." Dr. Schindler smiled for the first time in the session. "I don't think we should talk about rights when it comes to a 10-year-old. Jenny frowned. "When his parents came home, I told them what had happened. They just looked at each other like, 'Oh, brother, here we go again.'" "What did they say to you?" "Rena, Eli's mother, all she said was that I should try not to get Eli angry. She said once he gets angry, it's hard to win him back. They weren't apologetic or anything, and they didn't say anything about punishing Eli for what he did to me. They were only worried that maybe I got Eli mad at me. That's all they cared about. I got the feeling that Eli has had a lot of babysitters. He's so smart, but he seems to be real difficult." "Do you think you can handle him?" Dr. Schindler asked. Jenny shrugged. "I hope so. The Wexners are paying me $5 an hour. I really would like to keep this job." "Have you had any more nightmares?" Dr. Schindler asked. But then he looked at his clock. "Oh, sorry. We'll have to talk about that next session." He clicked off the tape recorder and stood up. Jenny stood up too, feeling awkward. She never knew what to say after he turned off the tape recorder. "Eli sounds like an interesting kid," Dr. Schindler said, raking his hand back through his coppery hair and then stretching. "Maybe he'll be sitting on my couch soon." He chuckled at his little joke. Jenny said goodbye and hurried out to the waiting room. Miss Gurney was standing at a cabinet against the back wall, filing away tape cassettes. She turned quickly when Jenny entered the room and picked up an envelope from the desk. "Here's a doctor's bill to take to your mother," she said. Jenny took the bill and tucked it into her canvas bag. "I like your hair. Such a pretty color," the receptionist said in her hoarse, scratchy voice. "Thanks," Jenny said, returning Miss Gurney's smile. "Dr. Gurney is such a wonderful man," Miss Gurney said, returning to the tape cabinet. I mean Dr. Schindler," she corrected herself quickly. "I was a patient of his, too." "That's nice," Jenny said awkwardly. She didn't know quite how to respond. See you next time," she said, and quickly walked out of the office. Her friends Claire and Rick were waiting for her at the mall at the pizza oven. A large pepperoni pizza was on the table, several slices already devoured. "Thanks for waiting, guys," Jenny said, rolling her eyes. She slid into the red vinyl booth beside Claire. "Rick was starving," Claire explained, wiping tomato sauce off her chin with a paper napkin. "Claire was starving," Rick explained, shoving the pizza tray toward Jenny. "It's still warm." He grinned at her, his wide grin. Claire and Rick were Jenny's new friends she had made after the horrifying events involving the Hagans. She had known Claire since elementary school, but they had never been close until now. Rick had been a longtime buddy of Claire's. Now they formed a very comfortable trio. Rick was a big, good-looking jock with curly black hair and a goofy smile. Claire was as serious as Rick was unserious. She was tall and thin, nearly a foot taller than Jenny, and had straight brown hair, which she usually wore behind her in a single braid, and serious brown eyes. She wasn't really pretty, but she would be one day. A lot of boys made fun of her because she was so tall. Jenny liked Claire, she realized, because she was so serious. Claire seldom made jokes. She almost never got jokes. She was serious and caring and sympathetic, which was more of what Jenny needed. These days, she often didn't feel like being teased or kidding around. "Chuck was here," Claire said. "He said he was looking for you?" Jenny sighed. "He just doesn't give up." "Chuck's a good guy," Rick said, just to annoy Jenny. "Then you go out with him," Jenny cracked. "He's not my type," Rick said, reaching for another pizza slice. "I'm glad you guys could meet me on your lunch break," Jenny said, changing the subject. Claire and Rick both had summer jobs at Rick's uncle's shoe store in the mall. "It's nice to talk to someone who doesn't smell like sneakers," Rick said, and laughed at his own joke. "How's it going?" Claire asked, sounding concerned. "Oh, okay, I guess," Jenny said with a shrug. "I started that babysitting job Tuesday night." "And?" Claire asked eagerly. She and Rick both knew how important the job was to Jenny. "And the kid turns out to be this 10-year-old evil genius brat," Jenny said. "Oh, wow," Claire said. "Is he really a terror?" "Well, listen to this," Jenny said. "He raises tarantulas." "Gross," Claire declared. "You sure know how to pick 'em," Rick said, and then looked very embarrassed, having realized what he said. "Maybe you should quit this job and find another one," Claire suggested. "Yeah, you could come help us lay sneakers all day," Rick said. Jenny shook her head and swallowed a large chunk of cheese. "No, I'm going to try and stick it out. I think it would be good for me to try to stay with it. And the money's really good." She shrugged. "After all, what's a few tarantulas? Maybe they'll keep me on my toes." Rick laughed and Claire forced a smile. They talked about the coming school year for a while, naming the teachers they hoped to get and the teachers they hoped to avoid. Then they talked about Rick's unsuccessful attempts to persuade his parents to buy him his own car. "Uh-oh, we're going to be late?" Claire said, staring at her watch as if it couldn't be telling the truth. "Oh no, if we're late, Uncle Bill will take away my shoehorn," Rick declared, with exaggerated horror. He slid out of the booth and jumped to his feet. Jenny grabbed her bag and slid out so Claire could get out. "What are you going to do now?" Claire asked. "Oh, I don't know. Wander around the mall, look at clothes, I guess," Jenny said, glancing toward the door. She half expected to see Chuck lurking there, waiting to spring on her, but he wasn't there. "If I stick with this job, I'll actually be able to afford some new clothes for school." "Well, see you around," Rick said, giving her a little wave. He and Claire walked through the crowded restaurant and out the door, hurrying back to the shoe store, which was at the far end of the mall. Jenny took a last slurp of her Coke, then wandered out into the brightly lit mall filled with midday shoppers, mostly housewives pushing strollers. Across from the restaurant, a new Buick revolved on a circular platform. "Big drawing on Saturday," a day-glow blue and orange sign proclaimed. She looked through a couple of small clothing boutiques, then walked aimlessly through Sutton's, the large, two-level department store in the center of the mall. She pulled a few blouses off the rack and studied a very short black suede skirt for a while, but her mind wasn't on shopping. She was thinking of her session with Dr. Schindler, of the things she had told him about her first encounter with Eli, of her feelings about how she had handled, or mishandled, the whole tarantula incident. It was always hard to push the sessions with Dr. Schindler out of her mind. They seemed to follow her out of his office and stay with her, bits of conversation and thoughts swirling about, refusing to fade away, forcing her to sift through what she had said over and over again. Whenever she saw the doctor, she felt unsettled for the rest of the day. It was as if their conversation stirred up all of her troubling thoughts, stirred up her imagination, which really didn't need stirring up, causing her to feel jumpy and out of sorts for many hours after the session ended. Without realizing it, she'd wandered into Blaster's, the record store. It was a long, narrow store with hot red walls, lined with big posters of music performers and a single aisle that led all the way to the back of the store, shelves of CDs on one side, cassettes on the other. She bent down to look at some rap cassettes, then moved down the aisle to the pop rock section. She was returning a cassette to its shelf when she noticed the boy watching her. Glancing down the aisle at him, then quickly looking back at the cassettes, she saw that he was sort of tough looking. He had short, spiky blonde hair, so light it was almost platinum, and he was wearing black denim jeans and a red and black Aerosmith t-shirt. He came closer, loping down the narrow aisle, taking big strides with his long legs. "Is he staring at me?" Jenny wondered. She took a few steps toward the back of the store, then glanced back at him. He had a gold stud in one ear, she saw, and he had blue eyes that continued to look at her. Yes, he's staring at me, but why? He continued to lope nearer, staring boldly. Suddenly frightened, Jenny turned and began to walk quickly along the aisle toward the back. What does he want? She wondered. Why is he coming after me? Is he coming after me? He looks so tough. Is he just trying to scare me? There was no back exit to the store. Looking desperately around, Jenny realized that she was about to be trapped at the end of the aisle. There was no one else around. The lone sales clerk was at the register up near the front door, completely out of view. The tough-looking blonde boy came after her, his blue eyes now riveted to hers. Jenny saw that he had a scar along the bottom of his chin. What does he want? Why is he coming after me? She was against the back wall now, nowhere to run. I'm trapped, she thought, completely trapped. He wasn't stopping. He was coming for her. Chapter 5. You dropped this, he said. Jenny's mouth fell open. What? He handed her a small white envelope. It was the bill from Dr. Schindler's office. It dropped out of your bag when you bent down to look at cassettes. Feeling like a complete fool, Jenny struggled to force her breathing back to normal and stop her pounding heartbeat, and reached out for the envelope. Once again, her wild imagination had led her down the wrong path. Thanks, she said. She knew her face was bright red. He must think I'm a real dweeb, she thought. His sky blue eyes did seem to be laughing at her. "I've never been in this store," he said. "It's pretty good," Jenny said, still feeling embarrassed and uncomfortable. "But they have a bigger selection at Hit Power. It's across the street from the mall." She wanted to get out of there, but he was blocking her way. He smelled of cinnamon for some reason. Jenny tried not to stare at the scar on his chin, but it was hard to avoid looking at it. He's actually very good looking, she thought, although he does seem to be enjoying some private joke. His eyes seem to be laughing all the time. "You live here?" he asked. "You mean in the store?" They both laughed, nervous laughter. He looks like a little boy when he laughs, Jenny thought. "I meant this town," he said, his blue eye seeming to twinkle in the bright store light. "Yeah," she said. "I just moved here, a few weeks ago." He shifted his weight, then leaned against the display rack, still blocking the aisle. "Where do you go to school?" "Harrison," Jenny told him. "Hey, I'll be starting there in the fall." I really like his smile, Jenny thought. "It's not a bad school," she said, stuffing the envelope back into her canvas bag. "It's kind of big, though. I mean, if you're used to a smaller school." "I'm used to a lot of schools," he said, growing serious, the laughter fading from his eyes. "My family travels around a lot. I'm sort of an army brat, except my dad isn't in the army." "That makes sense," Jenny cracked. They both laughed again. "Are you into Aerosmith?" she asked, making a face as she stared at his red and black t-shirt. "No, I used to work in a t-shirt store," he said. "This is one that nobody wanted, so I got it half price." Jenny laughed. "You're joking, right?" He laughed too. "Nah, I'm serious." He looked back down the long, narrow aisle, which was still empty except for the two of them, then turned back to her. "You hate heavy metal, huh?" "Well, I used to like Def Leppard a little." Jenny took a step forward, trying to indicate to him that she wanted to leave. She realized she was feeling trapped. "My name's Cal," he said. "I'm Jenny. It was nice to meet you, Cal. I've got to get home now." He stepped aside so that she could pass. Jenny started up the aisle, then realized he was following right behind. "Hey, Jenny!" She kept walking. She was nearly up to the front now. "I've really got to go," she called back to him. He followed her out of the store. They stopped just outside the open doorway. A group of laughing teenagers hurried by, on their way to the movie simplex just around the corner. "Jenny." "Cal, really?" "You wouldn't go out with me Friday night, would you?" he asked shyly, his hands jammed into his pockets. For once, he didn't look her in the eyes. Instead, he stared past her at the kids heading to the movie theater. "I don't know you. Jenny stammered. "This guy in my neighborhood. He goes to Harrison. Maybe you know him. Jim somebody." "Jim somebody?" Jenny joked. "Never heard of him." "Jim, I don't remember," Cal said, scratching the back of his head. "Anyway, he invited me to a party Friday night. Maybe you could come with me or something." "I can't," Jenny said, shaking her head. "I have to babysit Friday night. I have this regular babysitting job, see?" "Hey, I meant Saturday night," Cal said, slapping his forehead. "Did I say Friday? No, I meant Saturday." He flashed her a warm smile. "You probably don't go out with guys you just met at a mall, huh?" "Well, I never have before," Jenny told him, shifting her bag to the other shoulder. His grin grew wider. He still had his hands jammed into his pockets. "I'm not a bad guy, really," he said. "Why not take a chance? Come to the party with me Saturday night. If you hate it after 10 minutes, I'll take you right home. Promise." Those eyes, those incredible pale blue eyes. Why did they always seem to be laughing at her? Jenny stared into Cal's eyes, thinking hard, trying to decide. Should she take a chance? Should she go out with him? "Got to run, we're a little late," Mr. Wexner said, picking up his sports jacket from the banister. Then he shouted up the stairs. "Bye, Eli. Have fun with Jenny." Mrs. Wexner came hurrying down the stairs, buttoning the sleeves of her blouse. "Hi, Jenny. How are you?" she asked, picking up her purse from the low table by the doorway. "Eli's watching TV upstairs," she said before Jenny could answer. "He's been in a cranky mood all day. I'm sorry." She shook her head. "Just try to go along with him tonight. You know, go with the flow." "I'm sure Jenny can handle Eli," her husband said. He chuckled, but his tone was tense and scolding. "Eli isn't really a monster, you know," he added, rolling his eyes. "You're going to frighten Jenny away." "Oh, right," Mrs. Wexner snapped. "Like I frightened away all the other babysitters. I suppose it was my fault." Mr. Wexner avoided Jenny's gaze. He looked very embarrassed. "Why do you always have to defend Eli?" Mrs. Wexner continued angrily. Why don't you defend me once in a while? That kid drove me crazy all day, and you want to ignore it and pretend he's a perfect angel." "Rena, please," her husband pleaded. "Can we continue this discussion later? Much later?" He gave Jenny a quick wave. His face filled with embarrassment and annoyance. "See you later," he said wearily. "Good luck," Mrs. Wexner added, and the two of them headed toward the back door. "Sounds like I'm in for a thrilling evening," Jenny thought. She dropped her bag by the living room couch and, taking a deep breath, headed up the stairs to Eli's room. She found him sitting on his bed in the dark, watching some kind of horror film on a TV set a few inches away from the foot of his bed. "Hi, Eli, I'm back." He didn't look up. "What are you watching?" "TV." At least he answered me, she thought. "Can I watch it with you?" she asked, moving toward the edge of his bed. "If you want, watch this." He pointed to the screen. "This guy's going to get killed." He said it gleefully, an eager smile on his face. Sure enough, the guy on the screen walked into a cabin and had his head cut off. Yuck, Jenny thought, turning away to avoid seeing the blood splattering all over the cabin walls. She watched Eli's reaction, his pale face reflecting the red from the TV screen. He started to giggle, then laugh out loud. "He thinks it's hilarious," Jenny realized with sudden revulsion. "Eli, do you think you should be watching this movie?" she asked. On the screen, a deranged-looking man was running through the woods carrying an axe. "Who's going to stop me?" Eli asked, challenge in his voice. "I just mean, I can watch whatever I want," he said angrily, his eyes not leaving the screen. "It's my room." I don't want to turn this into a battle, Jenny thought, watching the man with the axe start chopping away at a teenage girl who looked a lot like Jenny. Eli started laughing again, a high-pitched, gleeful laugh. "Is that what Eli would like to do to me?" Jenny thought. "Chop me to bits with an axe? He's enjoying this awful flick way too much." "I didn't have a good day," he said suddenly, turning away from the screen to look at her. The red and blue from the TV danced across his face, making him look like some kind of multicolored creature. "I'm sorry," Jenny said sympathetically. "What was the problem?" He thought about it for a moment. "My parents don't like my pets." I can understand why, Jenny thought, but she didn't say it. "I'm sorry," she said again. "Maybe you and I could have some fun tonight. Why don't you turn off the TV and we'll—" "No way!" He turned his attention back to the screen. "Come on, Eli, let's play a game or something," she pleaded. He ignored her, staring straight ahead at the screen. "Eli?" He continued to ignore her. "Okay then, I'm going downstairs. I don't want to watch this horrible movie." "It isn't horrible," he insisted. "It's good." "See you later. I'm going downstairs." He didn't reply. She turned and walked out of the dark bedroom. As she reached the hallway, she heard him shrieking with laughter again, most likely at another hideous murder. She went down to the living room, pulled a copy of Sassy she had brought out of her bag, and sat down in the big leather armchair to read. As she flipped through the pages, she found herself thinking of Cal. Why on earth had she agreed to go to the party with him Saturday night? "I've never done that before," Jenny thought, feeling very uneasy. "I don't know a thing about him. He seems sort of tough, not my type at all. Why did I say yes?" Then she abruptly changed sides in the argument with herself. Why not take a chance, she asked herself. What have you got to lose? She was still thinking about Cal. when the phone on the table beside her rang. Startled, it took her a few seconds to realize what the sound was. Her heart was still pounding when she picked up the receiver. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was just a whisper. "Hi, babes. I'm back."